Jeanne Wilcox, United States Army, World War II. Oh folks, I love bringing these World War II stories to you, and thank you for those of you that are making it possible. Jeanne Wilcox served in the United States Army, was a nurse, and she took care of some of the D-Day casualties, folks, that landed on Omaha Beach, Utah Beach, on June 6, 1944 in France, and just an amazing story. When I interview these nurses, it really touches my heart. The history of what they represent, Vietnam, Korea, World War II. Just some amazing stories. And I interviewed Jeanne in Mountain View, California, April 26, 2006. I was in California at that time again, and she told me a wonderful story. She's still with us today. I just checked this morning. 101 years old, born in 1921. So Jeanne, God bless you. Thank you for your service to our country as a nurse in the United States Army. Yes, and I want to thank Ryan Hobbs. Ryan, I look in that camera, I say thank you, sir. Thank you for choosing Jeanne's story and sponsoring this story and allowing many people to hear. Go back almost 80 years now to World War II when she served as a nurse. Thank you, Ryan, for making it possible for many to learn, our younger generation to learn. History is best learned from those who were there. So I salute you, sir, for your dedication to our country and our veterans, and I hope to work with you again. So God bless you. Okay, folks, if you'd like to sponsor a story like Ryan has, I would really encourage you to get involved. It's a feel-good project, folks. There's information in the video description below this video. Just click on the link. You can go to larrycapetto.com, click on Sponsor a Vet, see a whole list of some of the veterans I've interviewed. It's just a partial list. Don't have them all in there, but you can choose somebody on there. From World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, or even the Gulf War. So there's lots of men and women, just a real diverse group of veterans there you can choose from. And if you'd like to donate to my work, you can do so by clicking on the comment section and the comment there to donate to my work. So my documentary series is called Lest They Be Forgotten. I don't say that enough, but that's what this little pin is here for. It says Lest They Be Forgotten. Commemorate the pin. If we don't remember, we're going to forget. If we don't remember, we're going to forget. And our country is famous for forgetting so. But I'm just happy to share Jeanne's story with all of you today. Subscribe to this channel. Let's keep the skin going, get the excitement going. Share this with our younger generation. This should be mandatory, showing folks, like you've said to me, in all schools across this country. You know, we need to learn from our history so we don't repeat the mistakes. And we need to honor our veterans. Veterans Day is every day for me. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing these videos. God bless you. Started here. So you were a nurse in World War II.
Right.
Was there a rank that you had? Were you?
I was a first lieutenant.
Okay, and your official title was nurse, Army nurse?
I guess so.
You worked in an operating room?
No.
No. Where were you trained to be a nurse, or were you always in the medical profession?
I was trained in Peoria, Illinois, in a hospital there.
Mm-hmm. And did you enlist in this military, or
yeah?
Was there a draft for women? Would women
no.
get drafted?
Well, I don't know, but I wasn't drafted. I enlisted.
Yeah. So you signed up for what, 4 years, or how did you do that?
For the duration plus 6 months is the way they put it in those days.
Okay. Okay. Now you went overseas, and you were trained to work to work in a hospital, basically, like a field hospital, or what type of environment did you work in?
I was in a general hospital in England.
And you treated D-Day casualties?
Yes.
Jeanne, can you just tell me a little bit about your involvement of working with the casualties? Just tell me about you know, how they came in, what you did, what kind of treatment and care you provided for the wounded soldiers?
Well, they came in large groups. In between time, we didn't have anybody there, and then suddenly we were full of patients, and we just took care of them until they were evacuated and rotated back into the interior.
What kind of casualties were you treating? What kind of wounds were you seeing and things like that?
Well, they were all bullet wounds. I guess you'd call them bullet wounds.
Were there cases that were worse than others? Were there?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
there were some that were real bad, and some that were just bad enough so they couldn't be on duty.
Do you remember it? It's been a long time, but do you remember any particular people that you worked with? Anything you can tell me? Any specific stories about any soldiers in particular that you remember?
Well, I remember one that was put in a bed right next to the nurses' station because he was so badly wounded, and he had fractures of the legs and weights on them to straighten the bone out. Don't remember any more about it. I hear a lot of the times that the soldiers were comforted because the women nurses were there, they'd hold their hands. I mean, were you involved with talking to them, comforting them? Oh, I must have, but we were awfully busy caring for their physical ills.
What specifically did you do? I mean, you personally, did you get them ready for surgery? Did you prep them, or what did you do?
Well, we cleaned their wounds and dressed them, and of course, if they needed surgery, we got them ready for surgery.
And these were young soldiers?
Yeah.
What was the morale like among them? Did they talk to you? Were they unconscious?
Oh yeah.
I mean, how?
Oh yeah, they were all conscious, and they had good morale. I don't remember them being depressed or anything like that.
Now you worked in a hospital in England.
Yes.
So
the 313th Station Hospital at first, and then after D-Day I was transferred to the 111th General Hospital in Cirencester. The 313th Station Hospital was out on the west coast.
Of England.
Of England, yeah.
What did you know about D-Day at that time? Did you realize how large that invasion was? Did you have any?
No, we didn't have any idea until the wounded started coming in.
And what were your thoughts? I mean, there's a lot of wounded. I mean, how were you?
Yeah, there were a lot of wounded coming in. And of course, we kept thinking of those who had been wounded so bad that they didn't make it. And that made us feel sad.
Did you lose a lot of soldiers in those hospitals?
No, surprisingly enough, if they got to our hospital, I didn't see anyone die afterwards. They got awfully good care.
What about the ones that were seriously wounded? Maybe did they lose an arm or a leg? Were there?
I didn't see a lot of amputations, but I did see a lot of legs that had been wounded badly enough so they had to have traction on them. We had a lot of patients in traction, which would straighten the bone that was hit.
So there were a number of different types of wounds and.
Oh yeah, lots of different types of wounds.
It wasn't just,
but most of them were orthopedic.
That's what I was going to ask you, if orthopedic.
Yeah, most of them were orthopedic.
Were there a lot of nurses like yourself working on the wounded?
Oh yeah. Full hospital full. We were all there for that purpose.
So you said you'd clean their wounds and stuff. I mean, what do you, I'm not a doctor or a nurse, so what are you doing when you're cleaning a wound? Do you wipe it off? Do you put something
I
on?
didn't clean rooms. We had core boys to do that.
To clean the wounds?
The wounds.
Yeah,
Oh,
wounds.
I thought you said the
No, no.
rooms.
You mentioned that you cleaned the wounds, you got them ready for surgery or what have you.
Yes, and then took care of them after surgery and changed their dressings. And
What was the hardest part of your job for you, do you think?
I think the long hours. We were on 12-hour shifts, 7 to 7 in the morning to the evening, and then evening to morning.
So how did you feel at the end of your days? Do you remember? I mean, were you exhausted?
I was ready to go out and have some fun.
They didn't let you do that, did they?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
We were young and energetic.
yeah. So what would you do for fun?
We'd go into town, and I can't remember much what we did down in town, but it was fun because it was in England and everything was new to us.
Well, I can only imagine what that would have been like. How long did you work in the hospital? How many months?
Well, the whole time I was in the Army, I was in hospitals.
And did you, well, as far as the D-Day casualties, that was in 1944. Did you work maybe through the summer into the fall of 44?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of D-Day casualties in the hospital I was in. But they had usually been evacuated through a station hospital, possibly. I always felt kind of gypped that I was in a sort of a rear echelons hospital.
What do you mean by that, Jim?
Well, I would have rather been up closer to where the action was.
Well, you would have had to been over in France then, wouldn't you? I mean,
Well, not at first. The Germans were in France at first. I would have been on the coast, and I was in a station hospital at first, but on D-Day they transferred me to a general hospital. There was more need there, I guess.
now as a first lieutenant, you have rank over some other officers, or I mean, other people.
Yeah, but it didn't mean anything.
They wouldn't salute you.
Oh yes, they saluted me, the soldiers did.
Did you go, like I said, did you provide a lot of care? I mean, if I was wounded in a hospital, to see a nurse, that would be a welcome sight, you know?
Uh-huh.
Did you feel like that was special for them to see you, to work with you?
Oh, I think so. They always commented on the fact that it was fun to see an American girl.
And these were American GIs.
Yes.
Did you ever talk with them? Do you remember any conversation you had with anybody?
I don't remember any conversations I had with them, but they would tell us about what had happened. And,
like how they were wounded or something?
they didn't talk much about that, no.
I wonder why.
I don't know. It was a very traumatic experience for them, of course.
You ever think about them, maybe where they are today? Or what
Oh, I
happened with
often
them?
wonder where they are today. I don't remember any of their names, so I couldn't very well follow up.
I just thought maybe you would remember some particular incidents or stuff. I mean, some of those boys that lost their arms or legs or whatever and they went back home, that would have been hard for their families.
Oh, it sure would have.
Did you
Yeah.
ever think about that? I mean,
Oh,
these young men being
sure.
injured for life like that?
Yeah, yeah. But we were so busy that it was hard for us to project in the future.
So,
Do you remember the story you told me about ice skating at Rockefeller Center?
Oh,
And
it's,
then when you got to England, one of the soldiers there,
oh yeah.
do you remember that? Tell
Yeah.
that story.
Well, when I was in New York on the way overseas, I went ice skating. I loved ice skating. I was born in northern Minnesota, and I ice skated all the time in the winter. And so I ice skated at Rockefeller Center. And when I got to England, one of the patients I took care of there said that he remembered seeing me ice skating in Rockefeller Center. And I thought that was a tremendous coincidence.
That is.
Uh-huh.
No kidding. No kidding. Did you work on anybody that was like a general or anybody like that?
No, I didn't work on an officer's ward. I worked just with enlisted.
So there was a separation or a difference?
Oh yeah, they always separate. The Army was very fussy about that.
Has anybody ever thanked you for serving in World War II? Do people thank you at all, or I mean?
Oh, they always did at the time.
How about lately? I mean.
No, I've never heard of anybody that even remembered that I was there.
Well, a lot of the old World War II men, they wear hats and stuff, you know, and people will shake their hand.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you ought to wear some hat or something.
That's a good idea.
It'd probably draw a lot of attention, that's for sure. But, you know, thinking back over 60 years, does it seem like a dream, or can you remember pretty vividly what you were doing back then?
Oh, I can remember pretty vividly. I can remember back then better than I can yesterday.
Well, just tell me a little bit about World War II. I mean, it was different then than it is today.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was sent overseas before D-Day, and I was in the 113th Station Hospital out in the very western part of England. And then on D-Day, I was sent to the 111th General Hospital in Cirencester. And that's where we got a lot of the patients that were wounded on D-Day and afterwards.
And Jeanne, tell me again now, you said it was mainly orthopedic type wounds?
Yes, almost all were orthopedic.
So tell me again your care, what you did, and tell me specifically again, when you said you cleaned wounds?
Yeah, and changed dressings and got patients ready to be evacuated and sent back to the States. And of course, they were all eager to leave.
Were they, and they didn't talk much about the war, what had happened to them or anything?
No, I don't remember they're talking about their injuries or anything like that.
Were specific type wounds again? I mean,
they were orthopedic wounds, almost all of them.
But
unless maybe I was on an orthopedic unit, but that's how almost all the wounds were, bones damaged.
What about, do you think they were like gunshots or artillery fire, or what do you think happened to them?
I never tried to figure out what happened. I knew they'd been wounded, and that's as far as it went.
And when you were trained to do your work, did you realize that someday you would be in a hospital working with the wounded like that, or?
No, I didn't, because when I was in nurses training, the war hadn't started yet. At least I think that I graduated from nursing in 1942, and you see, 1944 is when these kids were hit.
So, were there any reports that you received about how bad D-Day was? I mean, you just assumed it was bad because of the casualties?
Yes, I assumed it was bad because of the casualties. And
would they all come by ship from France back over to England? Is that how they were transported?
I think so, yeah.
And then they were brought to the hospital through a truck or something, ambulance?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we admitted them onto our unit and then took care of them from there.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. I haven't thought about that in 40, 50 years.
You got hit by an ambulance once, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I was
What
I was riding my bicycle and I ran right into half of the middle of an ambulance.
You ran right into it.
Right. I wasn't hurt, and the ambulance wasn't hurt, and my bicycle got repaired. I remember I wrote on my bicycle in paint, I think a B-17 flying low or something like that.
What are your thoughts about war? I mean, yesterday and today, what are your thoughts about war?
I think war is abominable, and I think we should not be in wars. It's against all humanity to be in wars.
But do you think war is necessary at times?
I can't believe a war would be necessary at times. I think negotiation is the way to deal with differences.
What about during World War II? What would have happened if we wouldn't have got involved in what we did in Germany and in Japan, against Japan?
I don't know. We should have probably tried to negotiate.
Well, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, though, who are you going to negotiate with, you think? That'd be a tough one, wouldn't it?
That'd be a tough one, yeah.
We declared war the next day. So.
Right.
But were you aware of the war in the Pacific while you were over in Europe? I mean, was that something that you were even...
We didn't even think about the war in the Pacific. We were so concerned with the war in Europe.
So do you remember when you came home from there? Was it 1945 or 1946 or?
Golly.
Were you married then?
No.
Okay. Right, you got married in 49, did you say?
47.
47.
They met in a veterans group on campus.
Yeah. Yeah, we went to the University of Minnesota, both my husband and I, and we met there the veterans who were at the University of Minnesota were in an organization called the American Veterans Association, and we met in that group after the war.
What's the secret of being married almost 60 years?
I don't have any secrets. I just picked the right guy.
Oh, come on. There's got to be some advice you can give people.
I can't give any advice.
Well, how come you guys stayed married a lot longer than people are today? Got to be a reason for that.
Well, we had a lot in common, and we loved each other. And that makes a difference.
You never fought or anything, or disagreed?
Oh, we quibbled all the time.
Yeah.
But it was never serious,
Yeah.
our fighting.
Sure.
And we had 2 kids.
Well, they call the World War II generation the greatest generation. Do you believe that?
I don't know. I'd have to compare it with the other generations. We were pretty good, though.
Do you think it's important, Jeanne, that we remember what happened in World War II?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, from a historical point of view, we should know that World War II happened and what happened in it and all.
Do you think it's important that our younger generation today, our kids, learn about World War II?
Oh, sure. Just as it's important that they remember about the Civil War and the First World War and the Revolutionary War. They all need that historical background.
Being a veteran of World War II and an American citizen, what does freedom mean to you, Jeanne?
Oh, living in the United States is important, and I would hope that other countries also have freedom to speak out when they want to, even against their governments, and the freedom to believe as they wish.
What about the price for freedom? You saw young men that were wounded, some died. What would you tell a young person today about the price for freedom, why we're free in this country?
Well, we're free in this country because there were people who fought for it and died for it.
And don't you think we take our freedoms for granted?
We do. We take our freedom for granted, and we mustn't forget that it comes with a price.
What does the American flag mean to you?
Oh, I get teary-eyed sometimes when I see the American flag. It's a very nostalgic thing, and
What does it represent?
well, it represents, as we've said, freedom and democracy, and everyone is born equal.
Can you tell me, back when you worked in the hospitals, are you a compassionate person?
I hope so.
Well, did that come across with these young GIs, and how did you have to hide your feelings and your emotions, or how did you act around them?
Oh, we were so busy taking care of their physical care that we didn't think much about how we acted.
I heard some of the nurses tell me that they told them they weren't supposed to cry, they weren't supposed to have any emotions, but how could you hold that back?
I don't think anybody ever told me that. Yeah, it was heartbreaking to see some of the young guys hurt badly, and I knew that they'd be evacuated rather quickly back to the back lines and then back home. So we didn't have them with us very long.
Well, I'm just interested in the compassion and the care that you provided, because again, I've heard some stories, and it meant a lot to those soldiers to hold a hand of a nurse, or just to have the company of a nurse.
The patients we took care of were rather impressed that we were American girls, because they hadn't seen American girls for a long time. But on the other hand, we did have rank over them, and that was a deterring factor, of course.
Now, why were you a first lieutenant? Why did you need that rank to do your work?
I don't think I did need it, but all the nurses went into the Army as second lieutenants. And then excuse me, after we'd been there a while, we got promoted to first lieutenant. And some, of course, got promoted beyond that, but I never did.
So you were discharged as a first lieutenant?
Yes.
What is that, 2 bars, 1 bar?
1 bar. Went in with 2 bars. Oh no, 2 bars was a captain.
That's what I thought, yeah.
We went in with a gold bar, and we got a silver bar when we got to be first lieutenants.
Can I get you some water?
No, I'm all right, I think.
Okay. Anything else you can tell me about your experience as a nurse in World War II that maybe I didn't ask you?
Can't think of anything. It's a long time ago, you
Well,
know.
I know it is.
And it was all a very exciting time, and we weren't depressed or anything like that by the situation. It was just more excitement and kind of fun.
You're going to have to describe what you mean by fun. What was fun about it?
Well, the fact that we were there, and a lot of my girlfriends from high school weren't, because I was a nurse and I got into the Army, and I felt very lucky to be able to be overseas and doing all the things I was doing.
You sound like you're pretty adventurous.
I don't know if I'm adventurous, but it was fun.
London must have been a real eye-opener for someone from 2 Harbors.
Oh yeah, London was a great town, and of course we were really, we stood out because we were all in uniform, of course, and we were recognized as Americans, and the GIs recognized us, but of course we outranked the GIs, and so that was a deterring effect.
That's amazing. I tell you. We're just about done with the interview, but I just wanted to see if there was anything else you remembered that maybe you'd want to tell me about the wounded that you took care of, or the hospital that you worked in, or...
Well, I worked in a general hospital, so we usually got patients that were evacuated through other smaller hospitals, station hospitals, and other hospitals. I've forgotten the names of the ones that they first came to.
Say something about penicillin. Didn't you tell me that?
Oh, yeah, we first got penicillin at that time, and of course we didn't have any long-acting penicillin. All the penicillin we had to give every 3 hours, day and night, round the clock. And they have long-acting now, so you only have to give it once a day, I guess. But that was a big chore, but a big help. It prevented a lot of infections in these bad wounds.
That's important, you bet. Was it a pill you gave them, or what?
Oh no, it was injections,
Every 3 hours?
intramuscular injections. Yeah, every 3 hours. It was a lot of work, because if we had very many patients, by the time we got around to all of them, we had to start over.
Who was in charge of that hospital? Who did you report to? Did you have a captain or somebody above you that you had to report to?
I can't remember reporting to anybody.
Well, who told you what to do?
We got, the doctors would write orders, and we'd follow the orders on the charts.
So wasn't there a charge nurse?
Oh yeah, there'd probably a charge nurse, but she just handled the administrative work of the hospital, of the unit.
So would you work with a doctor, or would you work by yourself?
We worked by ourselves, and the doctors worked by themselves. And then they left orders on the charts, and we followed the orders on the charts. We didn't have a lot of interpersonal connection with the doctors.
So all the beds are out on the same floor, or the ward, or whatever?
Yeah. The wards were set up so there were there would be a nurse's station, and then maybe one patient's room on either side of a central aisle, and then the ward would be the rest of the way. And they were large wards, maybe 25 patients on each side, 50 patients to a ward. And we had ward boys, enlisted men that were trained in medics, I guess they called them, and they did the bedside care, and we did all the medications and serious dressings and that sort of thing.
Are you proud that you served our country?
I haven't thought of it in those terms, but I guess so.
Well, there's a lot of pride within the veterans that have served, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just beginning to interview some of the women that have served, so it's interesting for me to talk with you and to get your story. But I'm going to ask you to do one more thing for me. I asked all the veterans to do at the end of my interview. When I tell you, could you just give me a salute into the camera here?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So, okay, just give me a salute into the camera. All right, good salute. Excellent. Now stay there. I'm going to take a picture of us, okay?
Okay.
Okay.